listeners some context.
So Voices for Change is an event that's happening in the beautiful Cleavey Castle estate on the 14th of September. And really, I suppose like that, in our society and our culture and all that's going on in the world, hope and positivity are far from what many of us are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. This year I celebrate 20 years since I began a journey as a holistic therapist. I started my reflexology training September 20 years ago in SRC, and that journey has led me to meet the most incredible people, to support the most amazing people, and it has been a really significant personal and professional journey. And along that way, one of the key people that I met was a man called Richard Moore. And Richard, for those who aren't familiar with the story, is the founder of a charity called Children on Crossfire. And Richard himself was shot and blinded in Derry in the 70s as when he was only 10 years old. And he was hit by a rubber bullet fired by a British soldier. Richard has went on to meet the soldier, and his message is very much one around the power of forgiveness. They work together in peace and reconciliation work, and a key part of Richard's message really is that forgiveness was the gift that came to him. It was, he could be blind and angry or just blind.
Yeah.
And so many people, we carry bigger and smaller challenges in our lives, and forgiveness is one of those key themes that runs through all healing and personal development work. Is just the sheer power of forgiveness. So Richard will be one of the voices on the day. We have another lineup of incredible speakers as well. The day will be hosted by Lynette Fay, and we also have a guy called Francis Loy. Francis I went to school with. In his 40s, Francis was diagnosed with MS, and just when he turned 40, and he has now become the world high rocks champion in adaptable level for the level of neurological challenges that he faces. So he really took a very holistic approach to that diagnosis, and he'll be sharing some of that journey. We also have Dervla Monaghan, who will be no stranger to any of the listeners.
She's got her own seat in here.
She's my sister-in-law.
And Dervla, I've worked with the Bosco. They've been great supporters of my Relax Kids work and Changing Cycles work. And as we know, Dervla does such incredible grassroots work. We're just come from a residential this weekend with some of the young people out in T-Cullen and Mullaban around the end of violence against women and girls programme. So that has been a really amazing weekend, and Dervla will just be sharing, I suppose, that voice of grassroots change and how we can really support change in such a variety of different ways in our society. And then myself, I'll be sharing some of my story. We have an incredible lineup of singers and storytellers, musicians. Anne Harper and Colm Sands will be joining us, another lady called Laura McGurk. And we also have Miss Ireland, a lady called Cueva Kenny. And Cueva's just been crowned Miss Ireland. She'll be going on to represent Ireland in Miss World. And a big part of Cueva's work is around supporting the homeless in Dundalk and the hygiene hub in Louth and across Ireland. So really inspirational stories that hopefully there'll be a broad range, that there'll be something for everybody to take away, and a great mix and a great sense of, as we enter September, we often see it as that reset, as a time to refocus. The later part of the year, maybe our intentions that we set at the start of the year have long been forgotten, and after a summer of unscheduled, no schedules, chaos, lack of routine, all the rest of it, it's maybe just something that people will be looking to experience, to maybe be inspired to lift themselves through the autumn winter months. I'm really looking forward to the day. It
sounds fabulous. The date of that is the 14th of September, if you didn't get that, folks, and all details are on our Facebook currently. The intended audience, Joanne, who are you reaching out to here?
Yeah, so really it's open to everybody. We have some older students, so sort of your year 12s, 13s, 14s that have already booked tickets, and it's incredible to have young voices. I know the earlier part of your programme was you were chatting about just the impact of social media for young people, and an opportunity to experience something like this will be fantastic for young people. everyone, if there's anything that I've shared there that speaks to people, some people will have over the years will have heard me talk how much hearing Richard's journey and story impacted me on a personal level. Other people are there because maybe they have a family member who has an MS diagnosis, or somebody in their family who's blind. Other people are there just, people have bought tickets just to be part of the day. So I would say if there's anything that you've heard as I've been talking, or check out our socials. I mean, there's on Changing Cycles on both Instagram and Facebook, there is, there's plenty of information there on the different speakers, what their messages will be, and just anybody that's looking for a bit of hope and inspiration and a day to maybe even just reconnect with themselves on their own journey.
I have to say, I did have the pleasure of meeting Richard. Cara Cruppen hosted him many, many years ago. And of course, there was no word of Frozen back in the day, but the salient message that came from Richard to us as an audience was, let it go. And I have to say, he was the most humble person who shared his heroin experience. But what I think dumbfounded people in the audience was, I made friends, I sourced out who did this to me, and we worked together. And now I'm in a situation where I can't unchange where I am now, but I can change who I am as a result of it.
Yeah. As Richard would say in his own words, I might have lost my sight, I didn't lose my vision, and the work that he has done as part of his journey with children on crossfire. So I think sometimes when we talk about Richard's story, his story gets a lot of the attention, and really, yes, his story is a key part of that, and it's inspirational that was his journey and how he was able to do it. And he holds that story, or my experience of having heard him speak so many times is that he holds that very compassionately, in the sense that he recognises that is his journey, and shares openly the benefit that he feels that has brought to his life, whilst also recognising that might not be the path for everybody who has had something really difficult happen to them in their lives. And however, for me, sort of hearing that, it offers an opportunity of seeing things a little bit differently.
Yes.
And then alongside his own really inspirational story is that work that is done in Tanzania and Ethiopia to make a difference to the lives of people there, and in particular children in schools. So
I've seen it firsthand. We were in Tanzania with the Bosco for Africa, and a school, wonderful, huge modern building built for children in Tanzania, and on the side you have Children in the Crossfire, funded by this guy. So it's the organisation, what he's done, he took that moment and turned it into something that has benefited thousands of children across the world.
Absolutely. And and it's that we all have the power to create change in big ways and small ways, and that was really what I hope to get with the balance of the day. Is Richard's story is particularly significant, and the work that Dervla is doing locally here, and organisations like the Bosco and Three Ways and Cara Cruppen, all of the organisations in our local area are creating change in their own unique way.
So who could benefit from this day? Who would you say this could be of benefit to, or someone could find interest in? Because as I said, the speakers are very, diverse, inspirational too. You go across it on such a wonderful broad range of speakers on the day. So
I think everybody. I mean, I'm biased in that. Who in the world today couldn't and wouldn't benefit from a space like that? An opportunity to spend a day in the beautiful surroundings of Clevie Castle, which in themselves, for me, decompress. I get to walk in it most days, and you just drop into a different level. The scenery, the environment, all of the rest of it is something that will bring respite. And then those different speakers, the different ranges of backgrounds, the singers and the music in itself will be fabulous, and there'll be humour. I mean, Richard tells his own story with great humour. Colm Sands is there, great storyteller, and can bring lots of humour into that space. So, and I think locally to have something and have speakers of that calibre, and as Lynette Faye is presenting, to have Lynette's voice there as well, is definitely something that we can all take something from. on different levels.
And you touched on a really important point, Joanne, in that there are some people who've come through a lot, and it is very, very, very difficult and a big ask to say, can you just move on from that? But what you can do is be part of a positive group of people who are sharing their stories, but most importantly, what you're hoping is there'll be some wee eureka moment in their heads that will allow them to possibly park, because there is no quick fix to what we live in currently in Northern Ireland and in lots of parts of the world. And yet, if someone just, I watched a programme about juries this week, and it was a unanimous vote they were working towards, and could they shift from 7 out of 12 and then with gentle conversation, not persuasion, because they didn't want to feel they were losing control of what their opinion was, but it was about seeding the thought of perspective and looking to see how, you see things through the eyes or stand on the shoulders of those that have walked a different walk. And then the jury became 10, and then they were able to run with the decision. It was manslaughter in this particular case. But the judge fast forwarded on to say, actually, the previous jury, that it was a reenactment, actually convicted this person of murder. So the two that firmly believed in doing nothing but murder, and this was it, were just so baffled how, with choice of words, persuasion kind of shifted it.
Yeah, a different opinion. And Wayne Dyer, who's an incredible spiritual teacher and someone who has influenced my life in lots of different ways as well, he has a quote which says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yes.
And I think that is something that we can all offer another, in most circumstances in life. We see them very black and white, and the reality is that they're multicoloured and lots of different perspectives and ways. And again, Richard holds that very compassionately in terms of his how he portrays his journey, and recognising that it's not everybody's journey. In my work then as a holistic therapist and someone that supports people through challenges, physical, emotional, energetic, different areas and aspects of their lives, I have come across processes and theories and ways in which we can support that process, but it's not something that can be decided overnight. Richard would say that he was a 10-year-old boy, so his journey was very different, and indeed very much influenced by his parents and how they perceived what happened to him, because it could have we're all impacted by the choices and the decisions of the people around us. Absolutely. And how that feeds how we are, and so Richard's message is very strongly that his decision was more or less guided or significantly influenced by the decision that his parents made and the approach that they took, and what felt like the right space for them. So we will be touching on some of those practices and processes and things that we can do to help move from that, because when we listen to Richard's story, it was a very natural thing for him to do, and that was just, and he'll say that, maybe it's just who I was that I was able to do that, but for people who find that harder, there are ways in which we can move on that journey. And life is a journey. There's no singular destination that we all get to. Yeah. But if it can lighten the load that we carry, and ultimately in all stories and conversations around forgiveness, and I think we have a complex relationship with that, because oftentimes our story or our condition is that when I talk about forgiveness, it means that I must say that what the other person did was okay. And that's never the case with forgiveness. Forgiveness is the gift that you give solely to yourself, because ultimately you can't actually forgive anyone else. And again, Richard will say that, whilst Charles didn't say for many years sorry for what he did, Richard will recognise that even at that point, forgiveness was a gift that Richard gave to himself, and equally it was a gift that Charles needed to give to himself, because I can forgive you for something, but whether you forgive yourself for it, and whether that's a confession or whatever, it's actually I remember listening to a Redemptorist priest a great preacher, and he was saying, you know, one of the difficult parts of, for example, confession is when someone comes back time and time again with the same thing. So his analogy of that was like, you know, God has forgiven you. That process has been done in a sense, but actually the person themselves hasn't been able to forgive. And that's a journey that Richard would recognise that in his example that Charles had to go on his own.
Yeah.
So, you know, not to share and speak on Richard's behalf, but those are some of the key messages that are part of the day. And as I said, that's one part. We have an incredible, you know, lineup of other speakers who each have their own journeys of having to come to terms with things, having to accept things, having to use that to change their own lives and inadvertently or indirectly perhaps the lives of other people around them, and to inspire other people. The music, the stories, all of that will combine to make it a lovely mix of a day.
People want to find out information about this.
It's on Iur Fm socials, it's on Change and Cycles socials, and it's on changeandcyclescommunity.com.
Change Cycles. It is this day fortnight in Cleavey Castle. Ticketed event?
Ticketed, yes.
Okay.
Lunch included, and
tickets are available on the website. Can you get the tickets from Cleavey?
No, they're just on
the website. Fantastic.
Website.
What's the start time?
Start time is 10:30 arrival for 11 a.m. start, and there's refreshments and all the rest out there.
Nice Sunday afternoon to spend and decompress.
Yeah,
and
we're
listen.
going to be on air. We'll be promoting it heavily.
Indeed so. Folks, thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks,
if you want that information, as I say, it's going to be our Facebook page, our Change and Cycles Facebook page, or changeandcycles.org.
changeandcyclescommunity.com.